So today we are talking about incarcerated women, the prisons that house them, and gardens. Perception number one. Who goes to prison?
Usually we think about hardened criminals and people who don't care about society. Everybody knows this show, right? Orange is the New Black? It gives you a different perception of what kind of people go to prison. It makes you realize that anybody can end up in prison. It is true that there are a lot of people who do terrible things that go to prison and who don't deserve to be in society. But more often than not, people are like you and I. Have you ever texted while driving? We heard about some stories today. Have you ever had one too many drinks before going home? I saw a lot of you at the winery last night. The point is, we all make mistakes. Some of us get caught, some of us don't. Some of us get judged for it, and others don't get judged for it. Perception number two. If you don't want to go to prison, then you just don't do crimes.
Right. We're a product of our environment. One of the first women that I worked with at the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women told me that when she was 11 years old, her father taught her how to make meth in the kitchen while she was babysitting her younger sisters. What did your parents teach you when you were 11? Does it have anything to do with what you spend your life doing today? When I was 11, my mom taught me how to garden. This is not a picture of my mom and I gardening because we wouldn't have had time to stop and take a picture, and we probably wouldn't have had tools quite that nice. My dad let me build things out of scrap wood and roofing nails because they were easier to hit a hammer with. But we're products of our environment, and the things that we're taught to do as children are often the things that we carry through our lives. And if children are taught how to make drugs, or sell drugs, or use drugs, or that's what they see, that's often what they'll spend their lives doing. Perception number three. Justice treats everyone equally. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Black women are 6 times more likely than white women to be sentenced to prison. There's been a huge jump in incarceration rates since the 1990s war on drugs that specifically targeted communities of color. And we see here that since 2008, the economic recession, there's been a low decrease. So when we run out of money, we're okay with letting people out of prison. The US incarcerates a larger percentage of its population than any other country in the world. There's been a 700% increase of women incarcerated between 1980 and 2014. Perception number 5, women who go to prison, mothers who go to prison leave innocent children behind. This one's actually true. Sadly, most of the women, well, 80% of the women incarcerated are mothers. Sadly, when they leave to go to prison, they leave innocent children behind. They may leave them in the care of a grandmother or an aunt. They may leave them in the care of social services. Either way, there are children who are without their mothers and oftentimes without their fathers. We know that when children witness their parents being arrested and they feel the void of their parents being incarcerated, they perform poorly in school. They act out, they have aggressive behaviors. And when they act out in school, they're labeled as bad. They're sort of oftentimes cast aside in society. They're not taken care of. This is one step closer to prison for them than it is to a college degree. What does all of this have to do with gardening? Well, this is what we love to do. If any of you have gardened with a child, you know that they're fascinated when they see a carrot come out of the ground and realize that that's where they come from, not the grocery store freezer. If you have teenagers, I suspect a number of you do, then you know when it's time for a difficult conversation, they don't want to look you in the eye. So the garden provides positive natural distractions. Birds, bees, butterflies, colorful flowers, vegetables to pick and eat. It's an opportunity for something positive in a surrounding that is otherwise not. It's an opportunity to have a positive conversation and activity with the most important person, your mother. This brings us to perception number 5. Prisons should punish, and taxpayers should not pay for their treatment. Unfortunately, that isn't true. There's so much research that shows that programming in prison lowers recidivism rates. For example, at the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women, where Julie and I work, Women who have been through intensive programming are twice less likely to go back to prison than women who haven't gone through those programs. First of all, it costs $30,000 a year to keep somebody in prison. Of those people, 25% will go back to prison within 5 years of their release. Think about how much money that is for us taxpayers. Yet we know that programming lowers those rates, so it's actually saving us money to pay for programming inside prison. Secondly, 95% of the women who are in prison will go back to their communities after their term is over. That's your communities, my communities. We'll be neighbors, we'll shop in the same stores. How do you want these people to be treated when they're locked away in prison? Number 3, 85% of women who are in prison are incarcerated for drug-related convictions. A lot of them were victims before they created victims. A lot of them suffered from traumatic experiences, physical, mental, emotional, and/or sexual abuse. A lot of them have to cope with these abuses and traumas and do it the only way they can, self-medicating and relying on their addictions. All this to say, we need to focus more on programming and diversion rather than spending more on putting more people in prison. The Department of Corrections in Iowa is actually really progressive and innovative when it comes to programming, but they can't shoulder all the costs that it takes to program all this, especially now with state budget cuts. Hello, senators. But it takes a village, right? It takes a community to support everybody, all the citizens, everybody who lives in Iowa, especially those that have fallen through the cracks. So it's not just the senators at the top who decide how the budget is spent. It's also you as an individual. What are you going to do to take care of your fellow community? Perception number 6, prisons should not be pretty.
This is a typical men's prison. This is from the Iowa State Penitentiary in Fort Madison. Many women are housed in men's facilities or facilities that formerly housed men. We need a gender-specific approach, and that's the approach that the state of Iowa has taken. The image on your left is the former mental health unit at the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women. Notice the green lighting, the rubber bed, the stainless steel toilet. This is a segregation unit. The image on your right is the new mental health unit at the Iowa Correctional Institution for Women. Notice the natural lighting, the windows, the plants. We put those plants in there. As it turns out, people don't get better here. They do get better when they have access to nature, plants, views of gardens.
Perception number 7, gardens are a luxury.
Not the case. Gardens, in fact, are a necessity. In a book called Defiant Gardens, scholar Kenny Halfand states, "Gardens domesticate and humanize dehumanized situations. They offer a way to reject suffering, an inherent affirmation and sign of human perseverance. In contrast to war or incarceration, gardens assert the dignity of life, human and non-human, and celebrate it."
Gardens are restorative. They provide us outside the prison with a connection to nature and other people. But think about people who are in prison. When they garden, they're connected to the outside world, to things greater than themselves that go beyond the fences that they're surrounded with. Gardens offer hope. And gardens are therapeutic. The landscapes that were designed by the Iowa State Landscape Department and the garden crew offer lots of spaces of hope and relaxation and places of solitude in a place where you're never alone.
And gardens are therapeutic in that they bring down heart disease, they lower blood pressure, they reduce stress and mental fatigue, and they provide respite for the women in a place where being alone, finding solitude, is a rare occurrence. Gardening is community. This is our crew. Probably a funny combination of people, right? In fact, putting together students and incarcerated women has been incredibly powerful. Not a day goes by when we don't talk about pop culture or food, or our favorite topic is hairstyles. When we're in the garden, we're equal. We're one team, we're one group. We don't know socioeconomic status, race, boundaries. All of those things go away. And gardening is ordering. In a book called The Meaning of Gardens, author Mark Francis and Randy Hester posit, Ordering is the way that we get the various aspects of our lives into the right places, or at least into places that we can comprehend and accept and upon which we can act. The women have no control while they're in prison. They're told when to sit, stand, eat, what to wear, where to be, where to go. When they're in the garden, we give them control. They decide what to plant, what to harvest, what to grow. Gardening is nurturing. Most of us chase bunnies out of our gardens. The women welcome them, the chance to nurture another living being, a replacement for the mothering that they're missing at home. And the gardens are changing lives. In a recent survey, we asked the women, how does spending time in the garden affect you? 70% said it makes it easier for them to deal with conflict. 70% said that they feel like they can be successful. Over 80% said it can relax and calm them. When we partnered up with the Iowa Department of Corrections, Warden Walkendorf said to us, I want calm women. She saw the power of the gardens as an opportunity to provide a calming environment, a stark contrast from the interior spaces. 80% of them said it positively impacts their mental and physical well-being and motivates them to change their lives. Perception number 8. Growing food is for farmers and hippies.
My favorite perception, right? Because I think I fall into both of those molds. But I have a lot of friends who don't fall into those molds and who believe that gardening is empowering. Everybody should know how to grow food. In prison, the high blood pressure rates and diabetes rates doubled between 2004 and 2012. We know that a healthy diet can help curb those rates. However, it's really expensive to eat healthy food. And the kitchen staff here at ICIW, they have to work with a budget of under $3 per day per person. Think about it. What can you eat? Ramen noodles? That's pretty much what they eat.
Peanut butter.
So growing their own food is a sustainable way to provide an access to a healthy, nutritious diet. This is a picture of the garden. So the women gain gardening skills that they can bring back home with them to share with their children, with their mothers, their grandparents. Some of them have found jobs in a growing horticulture industry in Iowa, and others learn general job skills, making compromises, sticking to commitments, making group decisions, and resolving conflict. You and I, at the end of the day, even if we've had a terrible day and a coworker who was super irritating, we get to go home and forget about them. These women, they have to live together 24/7. So think about conflict management in those situations.
Perception number 9. Incarcerated people are lazy and ungrateful.
Again, couldn't be more opposed to the truth. The women were so happy to grow food for their fellow inmates, even the ones they didn't get along with. They were proud and happy. Also, last summer, they decided to donate over 1,000 pounds of vegetables to the local food bank because they believed that the people who went to the food bank deserved it more than they did.
This is not just about prisons needing gardens. This is about prisons needing all of us. It's important that we share what we love and what we know, be it poetry, personal finance, photography, life skills, music, anything that you love, cooking. You love and you know and you want to share. It takes a community to help the people who have fallen through the cracks of our society. I don't know what prison reform should look like, but I know the answer starts with loving and caring about each other more. Thank you.